we're going to build the wall. We have no choice. We have no choice. Build that wall. 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 So, we're going to build it. Who's going to pay for the wall?
The Gauls.
100%. By the way, 100%.
Greetings, my fellow Romans. So yeah, I upgraded from the last video. I found this cool red cape. It's not really a cape, but apparently, like, I knew from sources, like, Julius Caesar apparently is usually depicted wearing, like, a red cape, cloak, in art, and I believe also documented in Alesia. Could be wrong, though. So yeah, on top of my normal Roman apparel, I'm gonna be wearing this, too, for, I guess, the rest of the series, or at least until I get bored with it. Though I will not lie, I feel pretty cool right now. I feel very Roman, very civilized, you know? So yeah, we are officially in my favorite, this might be the video I've been most anticipating. Okay, wait, this is starting to bug me. Okay, so this might be the episode that I have been most looking forward to, and probably the battle I know most from all of Caesar's exploits, the siege of Alesia, where Julius Caesar, in his brilliance, built a wall around the city, and then built another wall around him, somehow sandwiching himself between two armies and winning. It is insane, I'm not lying, guys. If anyone else had come up with this idea, would have been like, that's stupid. But the fact that it's Julius Caesar who came up with this is like, genius, you're a genius, Caesar. And, yeah, like I said, this is the battle I know most about Caesar, and this is my favorite battle from Julius Caesar, in my opinion. You know, kind of like with Napoleon, my favorite Napoleon, I guess, moment was the 6 Days Campaign, where, you know, despite losing the war, he went out guns a-blazing, winning many successful battles against the advancing coalition Prussian and Austrian forces. So that was like my favorite Napoleon moment, and I guess for Caesar, it's here. My favorite Caesar moment is the Battle of Alesia. I think, in my opinion, coolest battle of Caesar's career. In fact, just one of the coolest battles in history, you know? And I just can't wait to just really learn, you know? I just really want to see how Kings and Generals portrays this. I keep saying, I almost keep slipping and saying Epic History TV. My mind's still kind of in the Napoleon era, but yeah, Kings and Generals, one of the best, you know, YouTubers who depicts battles. So I can't wait to watch him bring my favorite Julius Caesar battle to life. And, excuse me. So yeah, I don't really have much else to add, my friends. We should just get right to it. Let's watch Alesia, Caesar's Gallic Wars.
After years of campaigning, Caesar had lost his first open battle against the Gauls, this time led in a revolt by the Arverni king Vercingetorix. His allies, both in Rome and in Gaul, were now wary of the situation and would pounce if he couldn't prove that he was still in control. The final chapter of the Gallic War is about to start. The sponsor of this video, Raid Shadow Legends, is a brand. While Caesar was fighting a losing battle against Vercingetorix at Gergovia, his best legate, Titus Labienus, was sent to deal with rebellions in northern Gaul. Local Gauls, emboldened by Vercingetorix and led by Camulogenus, were consolidating around modern Paris, which was called Lutetia at that time and was the capital of the Parisii. Labienus had left a legion near Agedincum in order to have a supply line to Caesar and marched with 4 more legions towards Lutetia. His troops took Metlosidum along the way, but their attempts to cross the river Seine were blocked by Camulogenus. Labienus was forced to retreat back to Metlosidum. Luckily for him, his scouts had found another crossing near Metlosedum. He crossed there and moved against the Gauls. However, Camulogenus used Vercingetorix's scorched earth tactic, burning Lutetia and retreating to the swamps beyond. At the same time, Labienus learned about Caesar's defeat at Gergovia, which provoked a big Gallic tribe called Bellovaci, led by Corius, to rebel, so he knew that he had to retreat beyond the Seine and unite with his legion in Agedincum. Labienus' decision to divide his forces into three provoked Camulogenus into attacking him to the south of Lutetia without waiting for the Bellovaci, and in the ensuing battle, the Romans used the fact that their divided forces were closer to each other. Each group supported the other, and the legions managed to defeat the Gauls with ease. Camulogenus was killed in the process, which slowed down the consolidation of the anti-Roman rebellion in northern Gaul. Caesar and Labienus both retreated towards Agedincum, where they united their forces. Meanwhile, more and more Gauls were joining the rebellion, and after the rest of the Aedui joined it, even the Roman province of Narbonensis was attacked by them. Caesar and his 10 legions moved.
You know, it is very fortunate that the Gauls, they're all these different tribes, and that they didn't all rebel at the exact same time, because that probably would have been a big problem, but thanks to that, not all of them jumping in, I think Caesar could manage them better. Because I'm just wondering, what if they all just at the same time rebelled? Like, that would have been quite something for even Caesar to deal with, right? Then again, I don't have any doubt that Caesar could overcome the odds. Like, him and just the Roman machine at this point is just so much. Like, I think Rome might, at this point in the world, have just the greatest fighting force, and under Julius Caesar, that's even better, you know? Like, I don't know, like I said, I think Caesar is basically, like, one of the best of his era, and, yeah, arguably maybe even the best. Like I said, I don't know a lot of people during all the generals. I know Pompey's around, and Pompey's pretty great too. No pun intended, but, you know, yeah, but we do know Caesar does eventually defeat Pompey, so, yeah, overall, like I said, one of the best, for sure.
Moved through the Sequani and Lingonese territory to the east, in order to gain a line of retreat to the Roman province of Gallia Transalpina. At the same time, Caesar's envoys secured a group of Germanic mercenaries who joined the Roman cavalry. Vercingetorix and his 80,000 tried to attack Caesar when the latter was trying to cross the Vingaiani River, but the Romans were able to stop the attack with ease. It is not clear why, but this minor defeat either disheartened Vercingetorix or showed him that he couldn't win against the Romans in an open battle, so he probably tried to recreate the factors that led to the victory at Gergovia.
You know, I find that when Caesar was in Britain, the best tactics that they had were hit and run. So, you know, basically the ultimate plan for defeating Caesar is not to fight Caesar. Just like defeating Napoleon, their great plan, the coalition, was not to actually fight him, but to, like, jump his marshals. You know, you know you're great when your enemy's best tactics are not fighting you directly, right? Like, even, like, Hannibal, like, Fabius's amazing strategy of wearing him down, the Fabian plan, you know, involved not fighting Hannibal directly, so you know you're goated in the military world as a commander with your enemy's best chances of fighting you or not fighting you directly, you know, relying on hit and run tactics. That seems to be, like I said, that seemed to be the most effective against Caesar, as we saw in Britannia, Britain. So, yeah, that probably is the only way to actually defeat him, right? You just have to hit and run, because it seems like Caesar wasn't adapting that quickly to that. Then again, even I don't know if that would work long term, because I do feel like Caesar, while he was not adapting quick enough to the hit and run back in Britain, I do feel like he would eventually. That's kind of one of the Romans' greatest strengths, is their ability to adapt to different types of fighting and find counters. So then again, like I said, probably would work, probably is the best chance, but still no guaranteed success. Caesar would probably find like 100 different ways to counter it, eventually.
He retreated to the Mandubii capital of Alesia. Caesar followed him to the settlement. Alesia was a well-defended city on a hill, and Vercingetorix sent messages to his nearby allies to come to his aid. Vercingetorix was in a strong position. He outnumbered Caesar, commanding a force of up to 80,000 men, and was surrounded by allies who would be able to quickly send men to reinforce him. From his position, it should be a simple rerun of Gergovia.
Nope.
He would wait on the high ground for his allies to arrive so they could either disrupt the Roman supply lines or attack them in the rear.
Oh, Vercingetorix, if only you knew what the heck was about to happen. If only you knew.
Caesar had learnt his lesson though. Despite his smaller numbers, he immediately began the work of fully surrounding and besieging Alesia, something which Vercingetorix had been able to prevent him doing at Gergovia. The Romans began constructing a 16-kilometer wall, fully encircling the entire city, complete with palisades, trenches and towers, hoping to cut off any escape. Vercingetorix sent his cavalry out to try and disrupt these works, but the legions were able to form a defensive line to hold them, while the German auxiliaries flanked around the side. The Germans proved to be vital to the Roman cause, and their superior horsemanship forced the Gallic cavalry to retreat back into the city, killing many as they were funneled into the narrow gates. Realizing that he would soon be completely surrounded, Vercingetorix decided to send out what was left of his cavalry at night to sneak past the Roman line and head to the nearby tribes to request reinforcements as soon as possible. Upon completing the first wall, Caesar learned from some Gallic deserters that these messengers had been sent, and so constructed a second wall, this one almost 21 kilometers long, and complete with 2 trenches and a moat, facing outwards to protect against any Gallic reinforcements.
That's insane, dude. Like, you know, anyone else would have been like, oh man, we're gonna be surrounded. I guess we have to lift the siege and go away and hopefully fight another day. Not Caesar, dude's like, just build a wall around them, you know? And then, when he finds out he might be surrounded, build another wall around us. Like I'm saying, if anyone else had come up with this, like, just explaining this plan to me, I'd be like, you're insane, that's stupid. But, like, the fact that it happened in real life and it worked is just hilarious. Like, this Looney Tune cartoon logic, and it's amazing. And that's why Julius Caesar is great, you see. Like, all the greatest men, you know, from Napoleon to Alexander the Great, they all thought outside the box. They came up with ideas and solutions that no one else would. And it's like, that's why you make it as far as you do, right? Like, man, I'm just amazed. And I mentioned this before in another video, but like, you know, when covering like the Napoleon series from Epic History TV and the Alexander the Great, like, not to say these men didn't use engineers, obviously, like, there are mentions, but I feel like no one has used engineers in warfare, at least from what we covered in this channel, as effectively and as awesomely as Julius Caesar has. Like, the man has built broken bridges in a day, he's, you know, built all these stuff, like, fleets, and he must have had the greatest engineers in the world working in his army, and it goes to show you just how effective these engineers are in warfare. I never really gave it much thought. Excuse me. I never gave it much thought, you know, before, but like, Julius Caesar is demonstrating just how awesome engineers can be and how useful they can be in warfare, and just the creative things and you can accomplish with them. And it gives me a newfound appreciation, you know, for engineers. And I feel like Julius Caesar has just used them to its fullest extent, you know, engineering and warfare. And it is just amazing, like, you know, like, completely worthy of, you know, being remembered as one of the greatest commanders of all time. He is worthy.
Reinforcements, creating a donut-like structure with Alesia in the center. He next sent out huge foraging parties to collect enough food to sustain his troops for the next 30 days. In doing this, Caesar had effectively robbed Vercingetorix of his advantages. With the Romans thus defended and supplied, it was the Gauls who now faced a well-dug-in enemy, and it was now Vercingetorix whose time was running out. With an army of 80,000 men inside the city, plus the civilian population and no way of resupplying, it was only a matter of time before he was starved out. This was Caesar's magnum opus. Faced with a desperate situation, Vercingetorix made the difficult decision.
Yeah, he let out all the civilians, and, you know, I think the women and the children. And he had hoped that, I guess, Caesar would just kind of let them pass on through, but Caesar basically said, nah, and they just ended up starving between the wall. Oh my gosh. It is brutal. Like, this is a very brutal chapter, like, you know, in the Gallic Wars. It is hard to listen to and even watch.
To expel anyone who wasn't going to be fighting, the old, the sick, women and children. He had hoped that Caesar would allow these people through the Roman defences and to safety, but Caesar was not in a merciful mood. He refused to let them pass, and the civilians were left between the walls of Alesia and the Romans, imploring both sides for food and water, neither side relenting. Over the next few days, many died of starvation and thirst, the space between the armies becoming full of the dying and dead.
Take part in the large-scale Battles of War Thunder, an epic multiplayer action game with military vehicles.
Dang, that's rough.
The Gallic allies finally arrived to try and relieve the siege, under the command of Vercingetorix's cousin, Vercassivelanus. It is hard to say precisely how many there were. Caesar claims that the number was as high as 250,000, with modern estimates suggesting somewhere between 70 and 100,000. Whatever the truth.
Julius Caesar, I was surrounded by at least 1 billion. You know? Oh man, that's hilarious. Yeah, and like me and my 300 men defeated 1 million Gauls in one epic battle. Julius Caesar writing all this down. Oh man. Yeah, there is a lot of embellishment in these ancient sources in terms of the numbers. But yeah, it seems like 70 to 80,000 as we covered in the Historia Civila seems like the more appropriate number. You know, again, impressive, but I guess Caesar's hundreds of thousands, it just sounds even more impressive, so I don't know.
Number was, all agree that the Romans were now significantly outnumbered, at least 2 to 1. On the first day of their arrival, they quickly filled in the first Roman trench and sent across a combined force of light infantry and cavalry to probe the defences, whilst the rest of the army set up camp. Caesar countered by sending out his own Germanic cavalry, and a fierce skirmish ensued. From their elevated position inside the city, the besieged Gauls saw that their allies had arrived, and simultaneously began massing for a sally against the inner fortifications. However, the Germans once again proved their skill, outmaneuvering and flanking their Gallic counterparts.
Dude, the Germans are carrying right now. Are you kidding me? Like, dang.
Forcing them back across the trench and into the Gallic camp. Seeing his allies defeated, Vercingetorix decided to bide his time and held off his attack. The reinforcements spent the next day constructing siege ladders, and then, at midnight, launched another attack. Taking the Romans by surprise, they found some initial success, but Mark Antony, in his first battle, was commanding this section of the wall.
I was wondering when Mark Antony was about to be mentioned, because up to this point in both series, Mark Antony has not been mentioned. And, like, with the way Mark Antony's always portrayed or talked about, you always get the impression that he's, like, Caesar's right-hand man, or, like, his second, you know? And, like, with that said, it's surprising that he's not mentioned until, like, here, apparently, right? So, yeah, up to this point, it's been like, what, Labienus, who comes across more like Julius Caesar's main guy. So I was like wondering when Mark Antony was about to show up. So it was cool. I did not know this was like, excuse me. I did not know that this was, I guess, where he had his big opening, you know? And, yeah, we're gonna be hearing a lot more of him, aren't we? And yeah, just insane.
And proved himself to be a composed and skillful lieutenant, pulling troops from other sections of the walls to reinforce his position. Again, Vercingetorix began to sally out to try and help his allies, but was delayed by having to fill the Roman trench. By the time he had crossed it, Antony had successfully fought off the assault, and Vercingetorix again withdrew into the city.
Dang.
Following these two failed assaults, Vercassivelanus conducted more thorough reconnaissance of the Roman position, and discovered that a steep hill overlooked the Roman wall in the northern section. Hoping to use this high ground to his advantage, the next day the Gauls used their overwhelming numbers to attack the entire length of the outside wall, but concentrated a larger force under Vercassivelanus on this portion. At the same time, Vercingetorix again sallied out, this time attacking the length of the interior Roman fortifications, hitting wherever looked weakest. This was the toughest the fighting had been so far. Caesar, as he had done at the Battle of Sabis, dashed from cohort to cohort, urging his men on, leading reserve cohorts personally to points where the defences looked like they were faltering. Vercassivelanus began making headway, piling earthworks up against the walls in order to mount them, and using hooks and siege engines to tear down the Roman defences. Caesar committed every man he had left of his reserves, pulling every man who could be spared and sending them into the action. It was a desperate battle for the Romans. Between the two walls there would be no escape, and if the line faltered, the entire army would surely be wiped out. The Roman line was holding the Gallic army, but it seemed like it wouldn't last for long. But then, Caesar appeared at the top of the hill. Leading the Germanic auxiliaries, he crashed into the rear of the Gallic reinforcements. Surrounded now on all sides, the Gauls who had pushed through the breach were decimated, and the tide of battle changed. Seeing their largest contingent broken, the morale of the rest of the Gallic reinforcements shattered, and they quickly fled. With this threat thus neutralized, the Romans turned to deal with Vercingetorix, who was attacking the interior wall, and they were able to force him back into the city. With the city still besieged and his reinforcements spent, Vercingetorix surrendered. It is unknown how many Romans died, but the casualties must have been fairly significant given the intensity of the fighting, particularly at the point where the fortifications had been breached. The Gallic relief force suffered heavy casualties, the entirety of the besieged army in Alesia was either killed or enslaved, and both Vercassivelanus and Vercingetorix were taken alive.
Yeah, the famous painting right here of Vercingetorix and his majestic moustache surrendering before Caesar. Yeah, this is like, man, this is such an iconic painting, probably one of the most iconic paintings of Julius Caesar. I have vivid memories of witnessing this as a small child. Like, it must have been one of the first historical paintings I ever witnessed. Like, this is burned into my head. Like, you know? Oh, man. You know, Vercingetorix put up a pretty good fight, I have to say. Like, he was unfortunately against Caesar, but I think he probably did the best he could. And probably if it had been anyone except Caesar, he may have done even better. But again, Caesar's Caesar, so, you know, he kind of got screwed over fighting him. And yeah, he was basically kept prisoner until he was eventually, I think it was during one of Caesar's triumphs, that he was kind of paraded around, and then I believe strangled. The HBO series kind of depicts him being strangled in public before the temple of, like, what, Mars? So, yeah. Interesting.
Although most of the rebel leaders were either dead or captured, the resistance against Rome was far from over, as the Bituriges, Carnutes, Bellovaci, Atrebates, Anticavi, and others were still in open rebellion. In January of 51 BC, Caesar moved against the Bituriges. This winter campaign surprised the Bituriges, who were probably unprepared for it, and soon they sued for peace, which allowed Caesar to return to his winter quarters. However, soon the Bituriges were attacked by the Carnutes for yielding to the Romans. Once again, Caesar marched swiftly and took his enemies by surprise, forcing the Carnutes to submit. The Romans made new winter quarters at Genabum and stayed there until the spring. Leaving 6 legions in the area, Caesar took 4 and moved against the Bellovaci of Corius and the Atrebates of Commius. This campaign proved difficult, as both tribes abandoned their lands and fought a guerrilla war against the Romans. Fortunately for the legions, Corius was killed in one of the ambushes, which proved to be the final straw for the Bellovaci. They were convinced to seek peace, while Commius retreated to the east to continue his resistance. To the south, the Anticavi attacked Liminum and were defeated by Caesar's lieutenants. The remainder of the Gallic forces in the area attempted to defend at Uxellodunum, but were defeated by Caesar soon after. The last engagement of the war saw Commius defeated in the north, and the rebellion was over. Gaul was pacified, and Caesar won over the remaining Gallic leaders with gifts and the promise of lower tribute. He knew that the battle for Rome was about to start. The civil war that would end the centuries-long republic was just around the corner. Thus ends the first season of our series on Gaius Julius Caesar. But he will be back for the second season, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed
Caesar shall return. Oh man, but yeah, the Gallic Wars, that's insane, and we've gotten through it. Yay guys, we've done it! Now we're gonna watch Caesar against Rome, him and Pompey. Former friends turned enemies, like, you know. It's gonna be insane, but I can't wait to see it. So yeah, another great depiction of my favorite battle from Julius Caesar. And yeah, I can't wait to get started. I'm really liking this series, and I'm just can't wait for more. So that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.